Hi, I'm Jordan Wesley. I'm the Chief Partnerships Officer at Let's Get Ready, and I'm here today with Glenda and Amy to talk about the work we do with students. So I'd love to turn it over to you, Amy, to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Jordan. I'm Dr. Amy Hubbard, and I'm the Executive Director of Early College at the University of Maine system. So I oversee programs at all 6 of Maine's public universities.
Awesome.
And I'm Glenda Tesalona. I am with New Visions for Public Schools, which is based in New York City, and working with 71 high schools throughout the New York City system.
You guys are reaching collectively a lot of students, like thousands and thousands and thousands of students in 2 very different types of places. So I'm excited to kind of dig a little bit into that with you. So I'm going to start with a couple of questions just for each of you, and maybe we'll kind of like toggle back and forth a little bit, and then some group questions. So
Sounds great.
Cool. All right. So Amy, you mentioned early college, and there has definitely been a lot of buzz in the education sector over the last couple of years about the capacity and potential of early college, but also the rich legacy of impact that it's already had for students. And the work that you do at the University of Maine system is actually a national exemplar. You guys are doing some really incredible things both with policy and program implementation. So I'd love for you to first, for people who might not know, like, what is early college? And then how would you sort of describe the state of the state with early college?
Sure. So early college is also called dual enrollment, and we define in Maine early college as any program in which high school students take college classes while they're still in high school. So we serve students in online courses. Some of our students will come to our campuses. We also have courses in which our high school students receive credit for courses that are taught in their high school by their high school teacher that are overseen by university faculty. So there's multiple modalities that we serve those students. In terms of the state of early college nationally, so Maine is very representative of what's going on at the national level. Even though we're small, we're growing. We've doubled our enrollment in the past 6 years. And that is because we really focused on access and equity, so removing barriers to students. So we removed fees, standardized test scores, transcript requirements. We basically rely on the high school counselor to determine if a student is ready for early college, because the national data, which is reflective in our own data, show that when students have access to these opportunities, they can be more successful. So nationally, over 2.5 million, the new estimate, students have participated in early college, so it's growing at the national level and at the state level. We're really excited about that.
Yeah, and I so appreciate how you guys are growing it with a focus on equity and access. I think it has the potential to be such a gatekeeping kind of experience, but the way you all are moving the work forward is to say, no, this is how we open the gates rather than keep students out.
Yeah,
so
and that's
awesome.
the new trend. So the early models of early college were really to enhance opportunities for high achieving students, which our programs do, and it's a great opportunity. But we also need to make sure that those programs are accessible. Early college serves all students, everyone benefits, but the data show that underrepresented students benefit most, and that's what we're focused on.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's part of why we're so delighted to be partnering with you, and so appreciate that landscape that you've given us. Glenda, I want to get your voice in here too to talk a little bit about your work. So you mentioned New Visions is supporting 71 public high schools across New York City, and you personally have years of experience in post-secondary planning with students in some of the largest school districts in the country, and you've seen sort of how districts handle the work of preparing students for what comes after high school. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about if you want to say a little bit more about the work that you're doing with schools, and also just a little bit about sort of what do you see from your vantage point in terms of the state of post-secondary planning in large school districts?
Yeah, thank you. I think we all are concerned with students, not just for high school graduation, but we want to make sure that they land well after they leave us in high school. We invest 4 years in them and build these relationships with students and their families, and we continue that investment to make sure that post-secondary is accessible for them and their aspirations are met. And so one of the things we're sort of grappling with is still this sort of catch up to pre-COVID standards. What were the rates pre-COVID? Are we there yet? What are we missing? But times change. COVID changed certain things around, including students' experience with education. And so even our highest flyer students all of a sudden had a different relationship with education because they were on virtual. They did not feel like it was a safe space for a little bit, especially in New York City, where COVID was at the highest point in the country at a particular point in time. And so we're trying to play catch up in that. We also are facing this whole idea where students, because they were home, have become their own YouTubers, their own content creators, and those sort of aspirations still live on.
Yeah.
And there's so many out there that are making careers,
Right.
making money out of being this content creator. And so having to connect sort of those passions and those interests with still sort of the academic ability, I think is one of the things we're still trying to bridge. And so we're talking to students around things like entrepreneurship and making sure you understand the business behind it. And so that's moving majors or thoughts about what does it mean to go to college. And we also are still working with a lot of immigrant families where aspirations or the American dream is around being a doctor, a lawyer, and now all of a sudden students are like, I want to be a YouTuber. And that's okay, right? But it's sort of like, how do we bridge those generations, those experiences, those lived experiences? And also this sort of need around like, maybe my post-secondary dream is not just college. Maybe my post-secondary dream is to work with my hands because maybe my lived experience was not what I thought education would be. There's always a question around, is college worth it? And yet we have these opportunities for young people, especially in a city as large as New York, where in 18 months, you can be a cybersecurity specialist, or you can learn all these trades, plumbing. As you know, New York City is all high rises that all need plumbing and are work underground in the subway system. And so those opportunities are also there for them. And we want to respect and value those choices that they make while being able to sort of say, if you do want to continue on a college route, we have levels of support for you, but we also understand that your college journey may not start at 18. It may start a little later, or your pathway is just a little different. And be able to respect all those voices of the 900,000 students that New York City Public Schools serves. That's part of the challenge, and really listening to students' voices and trying to respect what those are.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much, Glenda, and I think, I appreciate both of you for so many of the similar reasons, but also there's something so specific in what you're saying too that feels so aligned with the passion that I have in the work at Let's Get Ready, which is really about like student leaders, that students actually do have a voice, their voice matters, and especially in a changing world, technology is changing quickly, the landscape you just described is changing so quickly, and so, validating and supporting their voices so that they can have the most abundant choices for themselves, I think is so important, and part of why I love the near peer kind of model that we do in the work together is really highlighting that student voice and that student choice, and for me it's also one of those things too, this question of like, is college worth it? Maybe there's a different path you should take, and maybe it's a little windy, or you take a gap, or you sort of go through. But we want to make sure it's a choice, not just a default, right? Like our students have to have the information, they have to have the facts on the ground to make informed decisions about that, right? So I love that you guys are thinking that expansively at New Visions about that and helping students find their paths. So that's great.
We're trying.
Yeah, we all are, right? Yeah, good. That's great. Well, so I want to kind of, we've heard about dual enrollment or early college work you're doing. We've heard about sort of the broader district work of post-secondary planning that you guys are doing. And so I want to jump back into some of the specifics that we're thinking about how we partner together. So Amy, for you, at Let's Get Ready, we've been investing in a model of enrollment that includes essentially us sharing data files to get students enrolled and all of the legal background work that requires. So we've used these sort of embedded consent processes, and really allows you to enroll sort of full cohorts of your students into the program, really removing barriers like you were talking about before. So how does this opt-out philosophy support equity and access for students in your system?
Great, thank you. That's so important to us. When we partnered with Let's Get Ready, we ran a pilot year, and as you know, we enrolled about 50 students, and our partner Katie was just trying to get student consent forms, parent consent forms, and it was a challenge, and we were excited that we were able to offer it, but 50 out of the thousands of students that we serve just wasn't enough. And we also know that students who need it most may not understand that they need it.
Right.
And so when we posed the idea to Let's Get Ready, why don't we just offer this to everyone? It was kind of a crazy idea, but we moved forward, and Let's Get Ready was a great partner in that. And we went through the legal background to find out how to do that, and now we have over 3,000 students. And so we're serving everyone. And there may be students who are not from first-gen families who are receiving those messages, but at the same time, I think it really reinforces having a third party reinforcing what maybe they're hearing from their parents or what they're hearing from their teachers and their school counselors. And on the other end, the students that do need it most, we have a lot of first-gen students. We serve predominantly rural families. So having that opportunity to receive those messages, to receive the mentoring, and to take that next step. So we have students that are able to enroll in early college, but that's just the beginning of the process. And some of the work that we have done statewide to make those processes available. So every student in the state of Maine has the opportunity through our platform to enroll in early college at any public university or community college from one platform. That's exciting. We opened up that access, but now we have to get them to the finish line. And that's what this partnership, this opt-in, opt-out model does, is everyone's going to get this service. Everyone's going to get this mentoring, the pieces that we were not able to provide. We're really good at early college. We weren't really good at getting students across the finish line because we're busy supporting them in their coursework. And so that piece was missing. And by having every student receive that service, we're pretty excited about that. And the service that will carry with them throughout high school and throughout college is unique.
Yeah, it is unique. And it's, I think that's sort of, in the education ecosystem, so often we can feel this pressure that like everyone has to do all the things, but we don't all have to do all the things. We all have to do the things that we're great at, And so I think it's such a powerful thing about our partnership and that sort of piece that you started to reference too about no matter where they move through your system, they can stay connected to a Let's Get Ready coach, right? So they don't have to sort of like de-enroll and re-enroll if they're taking these winding paths like what you were talking about, Glenda, that there's continuity for them of that coach support. No matter the journey that they take. So that's great.
And a lot of our students now, we have free community college in Maine, and we've actually seen from some sample Let's Get Ready texts where some students are saying, well, I'm going to go to the community college first because it's free, and then transfer to our universities. So that was a really important piece of data for us to see that text message. We know it's happening, but to see students' rationale and thinking, and I support that. For us, it's a win if students go to college. And going back to your point about maybe they don't all need to go right away, but if for our students, they have taken a college class, if they find out that they're capable and understand that maybe this is a path that I could take, it just opens up a door for them. And then to get them, like I said before, get them through the finish line.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and you mentioned something I want to piggyback on as well, because we're talking about Maine, which is, I think, the most rural state in the United States.
By percent of population that lives in rural areas, yes.
Yeah. And New York City, which is not that. And so I think there's something about the scalability of this model that it fits and kind of flexes into these different environments. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how the work that we're doing together addresses questions of scale that you ask at the system level and that you ask particularly at a state that is the geography and demographics that Maine is.
Yeah, sure. I'll just kind of give a little bit of landscape of Maine. So we have a high school graduation rate and a very low college matriculation rate nationally. And so in terms of scalability, when we're serving this population of students, that's what Let's Get Ready enabled us to do, was really, as we are growing those numbers, we don't want to just grow our population of students. We want those students to continue to be successful. We have a really high success rate. It's over 90%. So 90% of our students earn transferable college credits, so we don't want to double our numbers but then have that percentage drop. And that's another piece where, that we are able to scale but also provide those wraparound supports to meet students where they are and provide those resources to make sure that they're still successful.
Yeah. It's like breadth and depth remains important.
Yeah, and that was the piece that has made us nervous as we've watched our numbers grow. As I mentioned earlier, we've doubled our enrollment. That's fantastic, but we also need to make sure that we're doing that with support. And when we provided that equity and access piece, we are reaching students who maybe have a C average, who might not have considered themselves to be college bound. So we really do need to provide those extra supports and extra layers and opportunities for them.
Great, yeah, thank you, Amy. I think that's really an important point that you're making, and it's making me think also about, we're talking about rural students, we're talking about urban students, and I think there's this world in which we live where we think like they're so totally different, that we couldn't possibly have anything in common. But part of what I'm hearing is some of the things you're saying about access for your students are probably the same things you would say about your students and the sort of kinds of experiences that they're having in our national education landscape. So I wonder what some of those things might be for you. Glenda, I'd love to start with you. How do you see your
Sure, I think
experience?
Even though our students are probably growing up in 20-story buildings, many of our students are first-generation college-going students, or thinking about their post-secondary in that sense, right? Their parents may be newly arrived or arrived in generation before and still thinking what works best for them. So we're also grappling with those ideas of, do I belong? Am I part of this college landscape? And a city like New York, where we have prestigious universities such as Columbia on the island of Manhattan, we also have community colleges that are serving various populations, from adult learners to that 18-year-old who's just arriving, or some still even younger because of early college or our College Now initiatives with our CUNY system. And so we're still trying to support this idea of you belong here and we are here to support you. One of the interesting things about our 71 schools is that many of our schools are smaller schools where they may be a size of 500 from 9 to 12th grade, but we also support a handful of large schools where one cohort is 800 students. And we support 10 transfer schools, where these are students that usually come to us overage, undercredited, and so their graduation target is not until 21 or 20, and so they're older students coming in. And for all of these students, we want to be able to say, if college is your choice, we want to be able to support that. And I believe that part of the strength of our partnership is that transition support. It's that handoff from like a high school counselor who, once again, invested in them, know them by name, know family by name, may know mom's number by heart or is on speed dial, and then to be able to entrust them and say, you're going to go elsewhere, you're going to find support elsewhere. And one of the things I've noticed is that our students, regardless of whether they're going to a community college or going out of state to Johns Hopkins or UPenn, for example, are still in need of some level of support. And the beauty of Let's Get Ready in some ways is that the students speak back to you, even though you're texting. And it can be through an actual engagement of like a text back, but it really can be of them saying, I'm not opting out. I'm going to stay right here and read through your messages, or whether or not I get to read it right away when it comes in, it pings and I'm like, oh, I got to get on. Yeah. Or it's not until 2 a.m. when I'm sort of tossing and turning in bed that I'm like, let me look through my messages, and here's Let's Get Ready telling you, hydrate. Make sure you get your sleep in. Make sure you are talking about, you're checking in with yourself and how you're feeling. Yeah. Sometimes that's good enough as well. Yeah. And that's powerful, right? And those transition supports that we're not thinking. And there's usually a counselor who's been doing that for the past 4 years. Yeah. And now it's sort of their own ability to be able to respond or to be able to take in that message and translate that message for what it means for them.
Yeah, what I love about what you're saying is that we're not just talking about the needs of urban students or rural students, we're talking about human needs. Hydrate, go to bed, take care of yourself, stay connected, feel a sense of belonging. Like these are not foreign ideas for your students, right? Yeah, yeah. Well, and the other thing I'm hearing too in this is like that scale is maybe the part of what shows up differently. Like the students are students. They're young people trying to find their passion, trying to find their path. But what scale looks like in Maine is different from what it looks like in New York. But at the core of it is sort of the students themselves.
And the irony, as I'm listening to Amy and your program model, is where the rural areas are thinking about scale and we're thinking of very focused support, right? Like our program is dedicated to our opportunity scholars who are Black and Latino males. Like we're getting to that level of student, whereas you're like, oh, let's offer it for all. And I'm like, no, these students are the ones who need this messaging, who need to hear this. And so that's the irony, right, of this whole different program models in the different environments that we both serve.
Yes, I love that. And actually, it leads me to a question I had wanted to ask you, Glenda. It's really good because I think part of what we've been describing is that the Let's Get Ready partnership model requires a lot of sort of data and analytical thinking, right? Like we're looking at sort of either large-scale enrollment models, or we're also thinking about how do we be really strategic about how to deploy the power of a near-peer coach within the systems that we work. And Glenda, I think that's something that you're really expert at, is actually thinking in terms of what's the data telling us that students really need. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, we get together a few times a year to dive into the student data. What is it telling us? What are we learning about how students are engaging with their coaches? Or how do you think about the role of data in our partnership together?
I don't think we would have partnered with Let's Get Ready if you did not provide a level of data to us, right? As an organization, I think that's what we pride ourselves in is data and making sure we're not missing anyone or nothing, no one's falling off our radar. We're looking at data regularly on the attendance level, on grad planning, on regents, accumulation. And so on this end with a partnership, one of the things we do appreciate is that there is data, that it's not sort of like trust us with your students and let it be. Not only are we trusting you with your students, but you're coming back and telling us, here's who's engaging, here's who's not, who's engaging passively, and here's who's actually like calling us all of a sudden 15 times a semester, or texting back with a near-peer coach 15 times a semester. And that sort of like two-way data exchange, because that lets me lead, is I look at those students and I'm like, who are they? Who's asking for help? Are they happening to come from like a community college, or are they coming from one of our state universities that's not more sort of a rural setting than they're used to in an urban setting, right? Yeah. And what are sort of their needs, and wondering whether there's trends around that. Also looking at the students who are passive about their engagement, and it's not surprising that the students who are landing in a Johns Hopkins, for example, stays in a passive engagement. They figured things out. Clearly, they know how they got themselves to an institution such as Johns Hopkins. Yeah. But clearly, they still want to hear these messages. They're not opting out. They're not saying, stop texting me. Right. And there's value to them to sort of get those daily reminders or weekly reminders. And so I think that's equally powerful. And so when I get the data from Let's Get Ready, I actually, aside from the large numbers, I'm looking at student by student and saying, who's needing help, who's needing support, which high schools did they come from, what sort of transition services are the high schools providing. And we can then go back to our high school counselors and say, hi, the students that are most successful tend to see, or the ones who are most engaged or looking for certain levels of support tend to be those where the high schools maybe don't have capacity on the high school level, that when they call the high school counselor back, the high school counselor is like, I'm really sorry. I now have another cohort of, 100-something students that I need to support. Or they can be the students who are just don't have that relationship with that person and are looking for other relationships. I also run our Bridge program, which is sort of that seamless enrollment over the summer. And we also use a near-peer model. Mm-hmm. And there really is something different from when I tell them to complete their FAFSA versus the young person who says, because I completed my FAFSA, I was able to get like a refund check possibly, right? And all of a sudden, FAFSAs are completed, and it's amazing. And they taught, there's a code switching that coaches are able to do between speaking to me and speaking to a peer, and there's that level of similar lived experience. Like, do you really want to go from this borough to this borough? That commute is really hard, or make sure your classes are at this level. So there's a lot of that stuff that I'm sure we don't necessarily always capture, because it's just another young person talking to almost a friend and someone that they've learned to trust and be helpful with. So
well, and part of what I hear you saying too is like the data that you're getting from Let's Get Ready creates these feedback loops that then you're feeding back into your system to help you make different strategic decisions. Because I think at the end of the day, one of the things that educators are sort of like masters at is deploying limited resources, right? And so that's part of what we're doing through partnership, is that we're figuring out, what am I good at? What are you good at? Let's see how we can fit those things together, and then let's create the feedback loops in our data sharing and our communication that help both of us continually improve the experience for students.
Absolutely, and I think we found sort of where Let's Get Ready fits in our success programs in some ways, right? And so we know that we have higher ed institutions that are providing those real heavy-handed success programming for students with their opportunity programs that we provide, or our CUNY, SUNY, some private school institutions provide, and so we know they're on top of them. I'm not going to be duplicative of the work when there's a counselor there doing that, and so I trust them with that. We also do have a partnership with another organization that you're familiar with, Bottom Line, who also has sort of that in-person level of support on campus. And so again, don't want to be duplicative of someone who's on campus with them, having these conversations, creating spaces for meet and greet. And then we have all these students that end up in all the various campuses in New York City, in New York State, outside of the city, where we think this is the best place for Let's Get Ready, to be able to continue to engage these students that are having various different experiences. There's some students that are on the subway, and there are students who are on campus and may not be home for another 3 months. And so this is where Let's Get Ready does have the ability to support various experiences, various students, and it's not limiting that campus sort of experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to come back to you in a minute, Amy. I haven't forgotten you, I promise. But I wanted, since we're talking about this piece, Glenda, I wonder if I could follow up, because so we've talked about this group of students who are sort of going in places where they don't have that support, and so you're layering in Let's Get Ready to support them. But you're also doing something else that I think is really exciting, which you've alluded to before, but I'm hoping you can talk about a little bit more. So part of what you guys are doing is that you're layering the support of a coach with scholarship dollars. So you have your opportunity scholars, they're receiving money from New Visions, and then they're also getting connected to a coach to support them with these things we've been talking about around a sense of belonging or community building or sort of finding their way. So it's a little bit of a cash plus coaching kind of situation here. And so I wonder if you can tell us a little bit more about who the scholarship is serving and why it's important to pair cash with coaching.
It's an equity issue, as Amy alluded to, right? So our opportunity scholars are representing all the schools in our network. There are 2 winners per school. One is a one-time gift of a $2,000 scholarship, and the other one is a multi-year total of $10,000 scholarship that's divvied up in all, for the 8 semesters in college. And one of the things that they have to do in order to be able to receive their scholarship disbursements is provide us proof of enrollment and continued proof of enrollment, right? We're supporting your post-secondary education. So that part they know. But they don't always know how to persist and continue. And so I have this expectation, or we had this expectation, that students are going to know how to register for class the following semester. And that's not always the case. So being able to partner with an organization such as Let's Get Ready, it's not intrusive by any means, right? Who's just sort of sending them reminders, like make sure you speak with your advisor to plan for next semester's courses. Make sure your financial aid is done. Those are the ways that we continue to sort of nudge them, since it's not in person, but now they have an idea like, I have an advisor? Who's that? And so hoping that that's leading to asking questions to find out who that person is that's going to continue those sort of trajectories or their next pathway to get to the next semester. So it's been it was really focused on saying, I think Let's Get Ready will work with this sort of students that we are continuing success work with, because that's not who we are as an organization typically, but because we had these scholarship dollars that are connected, we also understood that young people just don't know what they don't know. And so to be able to have that information is really leading them to ask the right next questions or leading them to connect with a resource on campus and seeing persistence from one semester to the next semester. So really excited to, in 2026, we'll see what our 4-year graduation rates are going to look like. So fingers crossed, and excited that this one-time gift, which was supposed to be a one-time gift, has now continued for the past 3 years. And all fingers crossed that we'll get funding to continue to support our class of 2025 as well.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and could you say a little bit more about, you mentioned the equity issue. Yeah. Could you say a little bit more about who you're serving and why you guys are serving those students?
Yeah, so we're serving, our opportunity scholarships are for Black and Latino males. We know research says they are the lowest persistence, lowest success rates in college. And so we want to make sure that, first of all, that all our schools are getting access to these scholarship funds. It's not just the schools that are offering the IB programs or schools that are offering AP courses, that this includes our transfer schools who are really supporting some of our highest need students. 70 of our 71 schools are Title I schools. So we know that there's that financial need associated and that barrier that then can exist. And so hoping that the scholarship dollars are going to help address some of those financial needs that they have. And we think our Black and Latino males are not used to getting scholarships. They're not used to applying, which is problem number one. And so getting them to actually apply. And then for them to be rewarded with scholarship funds and say, we think you belong in the place that you want to go. And we will support your aspirations, not only in scholarship dollars, but in also in added support, level of support with coaching. And we really are we make a real effort around making sure that they are hearing from Black and Latino males who look like them, who've succeeded, and say, you belong here as much as any one of your counterparts do. So that's really important for us to be able to target our limited resources and target a population that we think will best benefit from a near-peer coach.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of similarities between what you're describing too, because I think I heard you saying this a little bit in the University of Maine system's approach to early college too, that it's so many times resources go to the highest achieving academic students, right? And both in the work you guys are doing through early college and in the work that you're doing through this scholarship, you're saying actually there are more students than just the ones that are the valedictorians that can do this. Mm-hmm. And so we can't sort of neglect their educational paths as well. So great. Well, I appreciate you both giving me sort of like the deep dive on your individual contexts. And we see so many places where there really are a lot of similarities and a lot of things that kind of hold the work that we do as educators together. So I want to zoom out a little bit and talk about our partnership more broadly and give you both a chance to respond to how you're seeing the program actually kind of play out in your context. So talk to me a little bit, either one can take this. In what ways does partnership with Let's Get Ready complement the work that you're already doing? Some people sometimes they worry that maybe we're duplicating existing services, or I mean, is that true? How do you see the complementary nature of our work together?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Yeah. So in many ways, Let's Get Ready was filling a huge gap for us. So we would do the best that we could. We have a staff of less than 20 with over 5,000 students. So if you can understand that you know, we do actually provide a lot of one-on-one support to our students. However, in terms of scalability, we could not provide the level of support and interaction that Let's Get Ready provides. And one of the things I was most impressed with when we decided to partner was the curriculum, and knowing at what points to meet students where they're at and what to say, and just knowing that that is taking place in the background, behind the scenes, while we're focused on those day-to-day activities. So, a student can't log into their Brightspace account, or they're having an issue with a faculty member. Those are the things that we really need to be hands-on for. And Let's Get Ready can provide that additional, that additional interaction with students that are that larger picture that we're just not able to address. I can't help a student with the FAFSA. I can't tell them what the deadline is, or even some of the texts that I've seen that have come through is, what are you considering with looking at different colleges and seeing how the students are processing that. That's not my area of expertise. I don't belong in that space. I'm an expert in early college. That's really where me and my team do best. So I wouldn't say, for us it was a gap that I just knew was there. And one of our goals at the University of Maine system is to increase matriculation rates. So preliminary data shows that since we've partnered with Let's Get Ready, the matriculation rates are higher, so I'm pretty excited about that. Again, fingers crossed to get the final numbers, but that's really what we wanted to do. And how do you drive that besides providing college courses? You partner with an organization that focuses on, here are all the steps, like you were talking about, like here are the steps you need to enroll, get them to the finish line, and then when they're there, how to persist. So that's what we're really excited about.
Yeah, that's great. That's really exciting. I can't wait to see those numbers too.
Fingers crossed.
That's great. I mean, I think that's one of the things about the work that we do in terms of college persistence and college completion is that there's always these lag times in our data. So we're looking at sort of like, what are the interim outcomes that we're seeing? Does it seem like we're moving in a positive direction? And then we're all still sort of holding our breath for the big numbers that we're really waiting for. So,
and I want the additive benefits. So early college, students, as I mentioned before, students are more likely to attend, more likely to persist. So you take that and then pair it. I'm thinking that it's going to be spectacular. Again, we have to kind of wait, but it'll be worth the wait.
It will be. It will be. We'll celebrate. That's great. Do you want to add anything to that?
I mean, as I mentioned, we are looking at support from all different partnerships and all different ways, because this is not our sort of like daily work. It's a special work that we do, given the connections to scholarships. So it's nice to be able to know that I have partners, especially with Let's Get Ready, to be able to focus the work on these students and outreaching them and engaging them in many ways. So it's not duplicative at all. It's actually like been such a huge help to be able to just add that level of partnership, to say, here's someone else who's looking at data, here's someone else who's reaching out to these students, and here's someone else who's feeding me back data to say, on our records, they're persisting. And I'm like, well, they never responded to my survey. And so it's been a lovely way to sort of have that wraparound services in both ways.
Yeah, great. So here's another thing we sometimes hear. So you both are educators. You have a lot of different kinds of experience of this, and I myself am a social worker, right? And so in-person educators, we've often been trained a very like foot to the pavement kind of approach. You find where students are, you chase them down in the coffee shop, you like sit them in your office, you like have the conversation to advise them. And even for myself, I have to admit, when I first got to know the Let's Get Ready program model as this sort of fully virtual, text-based coaching support, it's like, it sort of like pushes on the edges of my own professional training around sort of that foot to the pavement approach. And so the Let's Get Ready model is designed very differently from those sort of more traditional advising models. And we know that some weeks students are going to reply to the messages, some weeks they're not. Some semesters, they won't say anything until the end of the semester when they say, thanks for all your messages. And the coach is like, great, good to hear from you. So how have you adjusted to the sort of model that Let's Get Ready uses, this sort of text-based coaching approach? How have you adjusted as an educator, and what strengths do you see that the model brings to supplement sort of more in-person approaches?
So we primarily use email in our communication with students because the information that we have to provide is detailed. We have to give them links to websites, step-by-step instructions, and we struggle with students not reading their emails, even with our own school counselors who are just so busy. Yeah. Email is not the best method, but we have to use it because of the volume of information that we have to share. And again, as I mentioned before, our information is very specific. It's here's the class you're registered for, all of those details. And so for us, switching to text was an easy transition because it's important to me to meet students where they are, and because of the rural nature of Maine, like I can drive 6 hours and be at my northernmost campus, or I can drive 6 hours and be in New York City. We're far apart, so it's not realistic. The boots on the ground, meeting students in their space is just not a realistic model. So I think it's important to just meet them where they are and communicate with them in the way that they are most ready to receive the communication and provide back. And it's for the students, it's very little risk. They get a message, they can reply back, versus for them, sometimes it's intimidating to meet someone face to face. And that doesn't mean that we don't try. We do outreach to our schools, but not, again, scalability. There's no way that we could reach. We serve over 200 high schools, every single high school in the state. Schools as large as over 1,000 to schools that might have 30 students. There's just no way that we would have that boots on the ground approach. So this makes it possible for us to say that we are serving every student that registers for our program, and that's pretty important to us.
Yeah, that's great. Great. So, Glenda, did you want to add anything?
Let's be honest. I'm old. I am not. I think my first cell phone was maybe when I started teaching. So that means I got my first cell phone after I graduated college, and so this is not the same world where when I was training to be a teacher, and I'm thinking about grade books back then, and it was all in paper, and this is not their world. And I am now adjusting or learning to adjust to the world that they now live in, and the world we all live in, to be honest, right? We used to have teacher stores that you could pick up all these different trinkets. That doesn't exist anymore. And so it seems much more natural to me that we are texting. It is the way we all communicate. It's probably the easiest form of communication in some ways. And it's okay. I've had to just this is okay. This is maybe not always the best for everyone, but it's also really good enough for a lot of them. And so I realize that when I do send an email, maybe I got read, I don't know, but texting will tell me whether I got read, right? I'll say, oh, this person actually read you, or it's been sitting there. And even with my own communications with them, I won't get a communication response on email, but if I send them a link to say, fill out this form, I'll get a better hit or response rate. So that's been exciting to see. And these are students that probably have had cell phones since maybe 10, when they got to middle school, then their parents said, here you go, kind of thing, or parents have had their email since they were born and said, I'm going to save this email address for my child. And so it's just where we live and how we live nowadays, and this is who our students are. This is how they communicate.
Yeah. Did you want to add something, Amy?
No, I think she's summarized it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, and you also said too in that that texting it's going to get most things we can handle that way, but even within the Let's Get Ready model, our coaches will pick up the phone because we've all gotten in that moment where it's we're not understanding each other on text. I'm going to call you, right? And so it doesn't have to be an either or approach, but that the embracing the technology is a huge benefit.
Well, that's what the near peer coaches are on the other side right? They're still able to build that relationship, be able to build a trusting relationship, where if that coach tells them, maybe you should speak to someone, or have you considered whatever it is, right? That's why the engagement levels of 15 and up per semester, that definitely is a place where you see that there's more supports that are needed. And so that Let's Get Ready continues to provide a person support, not a bot support, that's just going to respond in a certain way. And I think to Amy's point, the curriculum that's timely, that is what they need at that time, right? And students are saying to us, I kind of needed that, you got this, finish strong. message that there's I know you call it Core Plus, and I know we're trying to get away from that language, but there is another model where those who are looking for more supports are provided that support level.
And we did have a student, since you mentioned the more than 15, we did have a student that engaged over 100 times, and we were able to track that, excuse me, when she matriculated as well, and that engagement stayed the same. So we looked at that student and thought, this is great because it's probably filling a need that the student may not be comfortable in social situations but wants connection. And so here is this opportunity for that student to have connection and build those skills in a different way.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great story. I want to pick up, this is a little off script, so forgive me, we'll see if we can go here, but I want to pick up on something you said about bots. So this is something that's like all over our sector right now, right? Like everyone's like, oh, the bots will save us, you know, because we have these efficiency issues, we don't have enough staffing, like, you know, maybe we can get the bots to reply, but that's not the direction that Let's Get Ready has gone. Let's Get Ready has said, actually, we are a human-centered program. We use the technology, we allow it to help us escalate trends that we've been talking about, we let it escalate student concerns that we maybe need to give more attention to, but it is always a human replying to our students. I wonder if you guys could speak about that, sort of your experience of the education landscape of bots versus humans and sort of the environment we're living in right now.
I love the fact that there's someone else reading their message or sort of saying, oh, this message is a little odd, maybe I should look into it a little deeper, right? I think that's what we do as educators, as social workers, as moms, as aunties, right? And saying, does this sound right? Is there something around this? And a bot can't fix that. A bot can't solve for that. So the fact that there's, oh, this message is longer maybe, and that gets escalated, like what is all the things it's saying? And there's someone who can read it, or that a coach has a supervisor that they can go to and say, I'm a little concerned, and there's that professional on that side, not just a trained coach. There's a professional who can support that, escalate that level, are all really powerful pieces for us. And that's sort of one of the reasons why it's not just a superficial partnership. It's because of all those different levels of support that Let's Get Ready provides that we definitely trust to hand our students off to you.
Yeah, thank you.
I will add, Mainers are skeptical, and our students are very savvy, so they would see right through that if that was the case. And so we have not had any feedback in any negative way, because it is clear that it is a human-to-human connection, and that's really important to us. If we would not have partnered with Let's Get Ready if it was anything else, because we want that one-on-one interaction and the response when a student brings forward a question or concern. It has to be relevant, it has to be timely, it has to be on point, and there is something that technology cannot do, and it's making that human-to-human connection.
That's right, that's right. Great, thank you guys. I have one last question. So my last question is, why do you keep partnering with Let's Get Ready? And what are some of the things that you needed to consider early on as you were making the decision to partner with Let's Get Ready?
I would say that we chose to partner with Let's Get Ready. As I mentioned earlier, we had a gap that we needed to fill. We were growing, and we needed to ensure that the students were successful. And I'm also really want to move the needle, not just with our students, but in the state, in terms of the number of students that matriculate and earn degrees. Maine has a demographic cliff, so our population continues to dwindle. We have a brain drain where our students graduate and then they leave the state and they don't come back. And that's a problem for us economically, where we have jobs in Maine that we can't fill because we don't have qualified staff. So I'm really looking at the bigger picture and the state of the state, in service to the students, in service to the state. And Let's Get Ready came in just at the right time with a solution to the problems that we were looking to solve. And Let's Get Ready has been very responsive. You know, when I posed the idea, why are we doing all these extra steps? And yeah, we might serve a few students that don't need it, but doesn't everyone need that connection? Why don't we just serve all? And Let's Get Ready responded to that and adapted. And how are we going to make this work very creative and really tailored to our needs? So even though, as we're talking, there's so many similarities, we do have a unique model and we do have a unique set of students. And so I think that's another piece, responding to the feedback and working with us, meeting us where we're at.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah. We continue to partner with Let's Get Ready because you're great partners. We started this partnership 2001? Was 2000?
Well,
2020,
2020,
right?
Yeah.
And that's at a time when we were all remote. So we were like, sure, let's keep going. But we did it with at that time we had 10 charter schools that were also named under New Visions that we were supporting. And so they usually for us becomes our laboratories where we try things. Does it work in the charters? Then we could sort of scale it to our other schools that we support. And we started there. We started with we tried talking to making it like an opt-in model where we said, hey, maybe if we tell them more about you, they'll engage with you more. And it made no difference. And then Let's Get Ready came back and said, guess what, you guys? That made no difference. Right? Like the year later, they were like, we had the same level of engagement rates, whether they signed up or knew more about us than when they didn't. They were just happy that someone was checking in on them. And then went to a model where we had phased out our charter schools and sort of focused then the work on these opportunity scholars. And Let's Get Ready has been part of that, those shifts, those pivots that we've made, and have been able to sort of say, we can do that, this is how we can work it, this is how we can get better data, this is how we can get better information. And so it's really been a true partnership, and I as someone who tries to build that in many other industries or other organizations, I appreciate the fact that you are really true partners in this process of really supporting our now, especially our Black and Latino males with the Opportunity Scholarship. And so that's why we continue to do it. Because if I pivot, if we switch, if something else comes up, Let's Get Ready is really, we can do that. We can figure out a way how to make that happen. And so that's been part of the reason why we continue to partner. We're all serving the same students, right? We are all working for nonprofits, and so even to be able to work through those sort of barriers or hurdles that we all face, and finding a way to sort of, how do we continue to support? How do we continue to find a median where we're all happy, with the levels of support, the scalability of the support. So we're gonna continue on.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Thank you both so much. This has been a really great conversation, and I really appreciate you both coming to talk with us today.
I want to say thank you to Let's Get Ready. This is giving me an opportunity. It's rare when through your 9 to 5, when you're multitasking and trying to put out several fires at the same time, or trying to deal with many things. Having a moment to just sit here and just talk about one of the things that I get a chance to work with and a partner to work with has been fun, and to learn about how you partner at the university level has been also really interesting. And so I appreciate the time that you've allowed me to sit here and learn more about everything going on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree, and it kind of forced me to reflect on why we partner and what we're doing for students, because you get caught up in the day-to-day. So thank you for the opportunity to reflect and to share and to talk about the work that we're doing, which we don't get very often.
Yeah, cool. Thank you guys.